everyone, and welcome to this new edition of the Conversations of Excellence. I am very excited today to be welcoming a leader of exception, Aslak de Silva. Aslak is the CEO of the Nordic Business Forum, but he is much, much more than that. I remember meeting him a couple of years ago, and I saw in him someone who embodies the types of leadership which actually is meant to change the world. And I'm really serious about that. And I'm so happy we're going to be spending the next minutes with him. Aslak, welcome to the Conversations of Excellence.
Thank you, Stella. Happy to be here. Thanks for the nice comments there.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm very excited for the next minutes. But before we actually start the conversation, Aslak, is there anything that you want us to know about you before we start?
Hard question. Well, I'm half Sri Lankan, I'm half Finnish. Living in Finland. I was born here. I lived in 5 different countries, worked with different companies, and used to be a former martial artist, so kind of pushing myself to the limit and and then spending the after injuries and others, so then working for the professional life. I married 2 kids, 2 daughters, so happy life in Finland. The happiest country in the world for I think 3 years or 4 years in a row now.
Wow. Thank you for that starter before the conversation itself. And I'm quite actually curious to ask the first question around, you talked about martial arts. And I'm very curious to know what has that part of your life actually taught you about leadership that you think you would have not known had you not done that?
Well, yeah, actually, many people tend to be surprised when, of course, it's self-discipline and you learn how to control yourself, emotions and others. But I'd say, like, if you look from the leadership position and others, that seldom people see is that actually receiving feedback and guidance is the best thing. And actually understanding that even though like I had a black belt that I was teaching, so anybody can comment something that's valuable for me. Let me elaborate on that. So if you go on a fight and you're blocking and somebody's punching you in the head and you tend to have your hands down, so anybody can actually comment you and say that your hands are down, you are in a danger of getting knocked out. And then it doesn't matter if it's your master, your coach, or anybody in the audience. If you lift your hands up, more likely you're going to protect yourself and being blocking the next punch that's coming. So I think that's for the leadership position as well, that it can be anybody who can give you guidance. It can be anybody who can help you to become better, to see things that you don't see in order for you to make better actions and better calls or decisions in the end. So I think that's kind of the key, especially for the leadership, apart from, of course, like pushing yourself to the limits, having the self-discipline and kind of becoming humble and learning. But I'd say that's kind of is the thing that many don't see, that actually it's more on the receiving feedback and like understanding and being able to pick up those things, because of course some feedback is not, it's not new for you, and you may be conscious on doing something else because of some other reasons that the person doesn't know. But regardless of that, you need to be able to be listening and hearing and then making the judgment call yourself, that am I actually doing the right thing or should I change something?
That's very interesting. And I'm actually wondering, why did you pick that skill and not another one? Because indeed, as you say, there are so many other skills, right? Pushing ourselves, etc. Why did you pick the feedback one?
Well, I think like normally when somebody's commenting that you're not doing something well or you're doing something wrong, we do feel bad about it. I do feel bad about it. If somebody, I always want to do everything perfectly, and especially like when leading a team, I don't want to make any bad calls. But there was actually an example just actually yesterday when we with our product, so we developed it to one direction, and it's an online product, and then the sales team said that they are not happy because they sold a bit different product for the customers. I had my reasons for that, and I listened to the sales, and they were saying, but they they feel that customers are not happy. And there was already one customer commenting when they were testing that this is not exactly what we bought for an kind of an intranet service for customers, that anybody in the company can watch our streams or videos. And then, but then it's when you learn to get that feedback, so you understand that it's nothing personal. It's they just want to help, and they want to give you the reason that, do you see this the way I do? And as a leader, if you are able to kind of go back and revisit your thoughts before, you had right reasons to do that, and then but feedback is helping you to become better. And I think that's something that then, of course, you can learn it from being punched in your face many times, so you can learn to be better. But I think it's more on that, like, you can do that before that happens. And yes. I think that's super valuable, and has been super valuable for me, is that I take the feedback before something bad happens. And I'm super proud and happy about that, so that I don't need to endure the pain of doing a mistake.
Well, interesting. And thank you for giving that, like that specific case. We can clearly see the different stakeholders, the business, the client, the feedback, the sales teams, etc. That's interesting. You brought up change at a moment, and I know you know that, the moment we're going through uncertainty, change, it's in the air. And I was wondering, from your perspective, I mean, change was already a challenge even before COVID.
Sure.
But according to you, what are the skills that we need to pay attention to more than ever as leaders now, more than ever, more than before?
Well, probably lots of things. And again, I'm not master of everything. I can talk about what I feel, and I know that I still do a lot of mistakes. So maybe some tips that I feel. One is that we are still humans. That starts with that. So kind of like, you can't lead or help people before you kind of understand their emotions and where they are. And I think that's the hardest part for me. I'm super interested in the team, and the kind of the success comes from the team, is to kind of understand where we are. And I think now, especially in this change, I think it has polarized, and there have been new things for people. Those who said before that I can handle stress and work well under stress might not be that anymore, because there are other dangers. Now they're worried about their safety and their jobs and others, where before they were more worried about that, can I handle the work stress? And then there have been other people who have not, maybe people have changed, and you need to understand that the change in people, kind of how they perceive themselves, and maybe their strengths and weaknesses might have changed, their emotions and feelings have changed. So kind of like being conscious of that, and really taking into consideration that we are all humans. We all have good and bad days, but now we have special days, different days, changing days. So kind of like understanding that, and so being I think leaders' role is to be there for the team. So whatever the team needs, you need to do, and you need to deliver. So it's not about like, again, like the business strategy there, that again, the example, I might be right, and it might be the best decision ever for the company, but it doesn't matter, because if the team feels, or like the crucial part, and the customers don't feel at this stage that that's the right, it's the wrong time. Why would I make the sales team feel bad, and kind of like make them feel they would lose their motivation, trust in me, and they kind of like, they would, when they go out for the weekend or wherever, kind of like on holidays, they wouldn't feel good. So my role is to make them feel good and make the conscious decisions, and help others also make the decisions that help us to be kind of feel together that we can make it, and feel good about the calls that we make, regardless of the end outcome. So I think that's kind of a long answer and not even very concrete, but I think somewhere there would be the tips that I would share with others.
Yeah, thank you for expressing that, because I agree, it's not an easy question. We're still figuring this moment out all together, and yeah, it's a challenging moment. You brought up the fact that you brought up trust. I must admit, it's a buzzword for me. I love when I hear trust, I'm like, oh, trust. So I'm catching that word. And it leads me to the question. You talked about the fact that we're human beings, and you talked about emotions. Do you think that as leaders, especially now, to be able to create that emotional bonding with our teams, do you think that by sharing our insecurities as leaders allows us to keep the trust?
For sure, I do agree with that. I have to still comment that there might not be insecurities with every leader, and that's
Yes.
then the purpose is not to find that and say, but I'd say like open, honest communications on the situation and being sharing things that might not normally be shared. So for instance, when we ran into the COVID and we are an event organizer, so we used to have a daily meetings where we were looking at like what's the level of contaminations and what's the trend, and we'll talk about like what will this mean to us. And so that basically normally we wouldn't maybe talk about these things, that why this threat is so big for our company. So kind of like sharing and showing where we are. And I had many times to use and still have to use that I don't know where this is going to be playing out, but I think if we go to that direction, so, and I trust that we go there, and I trust that this team will figure it out. So I love Jim Collins, and he talks about the Stockdale paradox, that kind of the optimism and pessimism, and the was I think it was General Colonel Stockdale. General must have been like the highest ranking prisoner of war in the Vietnam War, and he made it out. And then Jim asked him like, why did you make it out and some didn't? So he was saying that there was kind of that you need to have the trust that you will prevail, but don't make it as a hard commitment on any days. So kind of if you start saying that I will be out here by Christmas, so the same with COVID here, like what we've experienced, that if you have like a date that we will be out that day and everything will be better after that. So when that doesn't happen, you start losing the confidence and trust, and then like you don't be too optimistic. So kind of be even paranoid on that, like that, but trust that you will make it, but kind of don't commit to anything that because of this will happen, then I'll make it. So kind of that's the hard part. So kind of the paradox there. So I think that's the thing that I want to share with the team as well, is that kind of like, yeah, we will make out of here, but these are the insecurities that we have. These are the reasons that we are in the trouble now, or we need to overcome these, and the world needs to go overcome these in order for us to prevail. Or then it's the other part that like we have now gone for digital business, that yeah, we haven't done that before to that extent, but I'm sure that we will find, let's work together and learn. And so what has changed with us now is that previously we were very cautious of making mistakes. We had plans and doing, but now we are pushing ourselves to make learning by also failing occasionally, because if we don't fail in a place where it doesn't matter, we think that we will fail when it actually matters. So we have actually tried to teach ourselves, and even for me it's hard, that like coming back to the martial arts, why would you go to a fight that you know that you're going to lose? It's going to hurt. But then actually, because you can learn now that when it actually matters, if you win or lose, then if you go to the world championships or something, it might be more important. So then you need to be at your best, not at this time. So kind of like that kind of change in the mindset has been there, and it has been hard for me and the team to kind of accept that. But then we confront it together, and that has helped us a lot, I have to say, and me as well. Kind of being able to deal with the ambiguity and learning that we will not every day be successful, and sharing that with the team vulnerably is important.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. There are a lot of words like togetherness, sharing, together with the team that you brought up. My next question is around change again. And I'm curious to know your approach of change when it comes to mindset. You talked about mindset too.
Yeah.
How do you build a mindset which allows people to truly share in times of change without the fear of, destroying things on their way? So how do you create that safe space in times of change for people to share? Because I have the feeling that sometimes some teams may be not fully expressing themselves, to allow to go to the root cause of things and allow that deeper transformation or change?
That is again a good and tough question here.
I'm giving you tough ones, Aslak, but you're the best one I found to ask the questions to.
Well, thanks for that. I'll try to answer the best, but I think it comes a lot of times we talk about this kind of like passion and purpose that if they're aligned, like that we all share the same thing and we want to go there and we want to be in the team that's going to make there. So then it's easier, of course. Like, well, if we all trust that we're going to make, we love the colleagues that we work with, the team. So it's an easier job to go for sure. But then how to build that is more in it's coming that I again like come to the human factor, so that kind of we need to face each other as humans, and this kind of remote setting, it might be harder than ever. We can turn off the cameras and nobody sees what's like the emotions and others. So how to kind of, but how to get people really understand, and I think it's again comes to the leader's job to kind of make best out of everybody and make the best out of the team. So the leader has to kind of get people to be together and share, and then of course we can talk, and I've said to my team and I say to myself as well, and to me daily, that if I don't believe that I want to be part of this journey where this is heading for, I need to stop being part of the team. So kind of like that, we need to be honest about, so it's like the team will be successful, especially if the leader really wants to be the part of the team, so there's no blame. So that we're in together, and the same goes with the team members as well, like that I want to challenge them to think that it can be that they don't know how they contribute, but they want to be part because they believe that this team will make it, and that's good enough to start with, and then we'll find how you can contribute. But it comes like this kind of a bonfire moment that we all experience something together. We sit there in a circle, virtual circle together, and kind of share the thoughts, and then the stories happen, and kind of we bond. And then when we bond, we start making a difference. We start changing, because in the I use another example, really stupid one, but my surname being de Silva, so I know that in the 16 and 1700s there were pirates named de Silvas in the Caribbean.
And you didn't bring your pirate outfit.
I love the image of the story that I have in my head is that when if I was a captain of a pirate ship, Captain de Silva there, and shipwrecks happens and we are in a deserted island, what happens there? So like the whole world that we had we had the vision of becoming the best pirates and looting for treasures and everything, and suddenly that's all taken away. We have the same team, we have the shipwreck, and we need to survive. What happens? So kind of like people start like together build, we need to together build the plan. In the beginning, we all run around, somebody's gathering for food, somebody's fishing, somebody's lying down there saying, I need to rest, somebody's crying. But we need to kind of come together and face the situation, then make the plan together. What are we going to do? The roles might change. The one that was really excellent in steering might not be steering us. It might be just picking up some rocks and making some kind of like that. We divide the task. We understand why this is important. What's my role now? And still the dream is to go back and maybe learn from the experience and do something better in the future. But we just need to face the situation as we have now. That's where the change starts to happen. We don't know where it's going for. We don't know how many years or days are we going to be in the deserted island. Do we get the ship back? Will it be the same? We don't know what's happening outside the world, but we kind of step by step build the future together and be adaptable for the situation. And if you can kind of sit down together, make the plan, and change the roles to fit, then you will succeed.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Great approach, and Captain.
Hopefully not a pirate captain though, but I just love that thought sometimes.
Thanks for bringing that context. It really illustrates what you're bringing forward. My next question is a special one, Aslak. I must admit that I was very moved by the opening of your daughter at the Nordic Business Forum. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, wow, she's going to change the world. It was beautiful, powerful. And I was wondering, I mean, it takes something. I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that it takes something for a father to see his daughter opening such a prestigious event with so much confidence. And I was wondering during that experience, that journey, to see your daughter on stage, what have you learned about leadership or about yourself?
Well, yeah, yeah, that's is probably the proudest moment of my life, to see that happening and really stepping up, and especially when the audience starts clapping and you could everybody being quiet when she starts to speak that I'm 8 years old, I'm your future. Like seeing how that sinks into the audience, and so of course very emotional. But I think actually it taught me a lot, and in angles that I didn't kind of realize before, but it was simple. So when I asked, we kind of came up with the idea, and she also speaks English, so we thought, well, this is kind of easy way to go, and we could test it out how it would look like. But we of course knew that she had never spoken in front of people, kind of like that. And again, like going for the tough crowd, like everybody who wants to be there. So kind of like going to the stadium size gig in being the first gig. But it came a lot of on the kind of planning and doing it together. So kind of like she was happy and I was happy. Like we worked a lot on the script together, and then we got professional coaching, and I was like side by side her, but she had to perform on her own. So we could go through the emotions, the self-doubt. She wasn't worried about stage fright as we adults normally are. She was more worried on like that will people be happy and accepting. So kind of she was more worried about what's the outcome in the end than how is it going during. Whereas that was a surprising.
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah, and that was surprising. And then I was looking at like I when martial arts is when how we prepare for a fight or something. So it's actually the same way that we deal with the self-doubt before, and we are more worried about that kind of like will we win than how we look. And that's what I saw there, that actually adults and especially the ones that often we are afraid of how is it going, and the stage fright and the moment, but she was not. But then kind of building the confidence that you are valuable, that people really want to hear this, you can do this, and then being able to kind of coach in a way that when we see that, like the first speeches that she gave, that there were always mistakes, but how to kind of go from there to be confident and successful. So it wasn't about correcting the mistakes, it was more on like balancing out, and then helping professionals, helping and training on the little nuances. But what was funny, like how we trained her, was that she actually spoke once to 10 people, and then to 300, and then to that 7,500 or 600 the audience, and 20,000 watching live stream. And emotions of the performance came just like 2 weeks before that. It was learning by heart, kind of knowing that you are important, so kind of the self-confidence, and then she was able to kind of pick it up in the end. So what I saw, like if I look at from the leader, so it's not about correcting mistakes, it's more on that the building trust that you can do, and then kind of supporting the way, and again like understanding that there's a long way from the start till the end, and you don't know what is needed. So kind of being the sideline, but then really like telling her that she's the star, and building the confidence that she's the one who's performing, and she's the one who gets the applause in the end and everything. So kind of that she can feel good about herself. She shouldn't feel like too much gratitude for thanks for letting me be here, or that I made it because of you. No, the other way around. We are happy to have her. She will make it, and she's the star. So kind of I think that's a good leadership lesson, and I think became very clear for me when I was looking at her. She had doubts in the way, and I think before she was speaking to the 10 people, she said that she can't do that and she doesn't want it. And then I said that, like what we did was she was crying, and we went through that, like, well, why are you crying? She said that they don't like me. And I said, well, let's ask them after.
Wow. I feel so touched.
Kind of, yeah, but going those down for moments and supporting and looking at the big picture, like as a father, it could have been easy to say, well, don't do it because you don't need to do that. But I was helping her to overcome that, and now that she still remembers and says that when can she do it again, and building a lot of confidence. So kind of like also being there when there's that moment of giving up, so kind of like supporting over that. and is needed from a leader and a father. And of course, it was hard to see your daughter there. And I remember my wife also saying that, can she do that? Should we push her? But I said that this is not pushing, and this is like allowing her to grow to the position, and we'll be there to support her until she's ready. And we managed to do that, and she nailed it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I really acknowledge you, your wife, and the whole team behind your daughter for making that possible, because it actually opened up, I guess, possibilities for people. And you had a double role, if I understand well. You were the father, but you were also, the person who was there like a coach as well. Like two people in one person.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
yes. Yeah, of course, we had then professional coach on the scripting and then performing, but of course, I was the one who trained with her and helped her and worked with the nuances and kind of when she had questions, like supporting. But yes, but I think is the today's leadership position, is that you are kind of the leader and a coach. You need to have double or even more roles to support, and you need to be able to pull them off all at the same time. And it can be easy, like for me, the pressure of like knowing, for instance, as the CEO of Nordic Business Forum, that if the performance of her in the opening act doesn't work, it could ruin the whole feeling of the event. So of course there's high pressure, and then it could be like the pressure can take over me and I could become angry, and I became sometimes, and like, why don't you train this properly? And like she was like saying that, like, I don't want to train today, and I like, well, you have to, this is important. So kind of like, but those moments also, like, what's the outcome when I go to my daughter and say that you have to do this, this is important for me, for the company?
For me.
Yeah, does it help? No. But when it then comes that, like, well, I'm helping you to become there, that you will succeed and you will be happy about yourself, do you want to work? Yes. So kind of like looking at the angle, and I think I still fall into the trap many times myself still, that kind of saying that this is important for me or for the company, whereas it should be important for the person. And that's then the leader's position, is to kind of help the person to overcome, not because that I will succeed, but the person will succeed, we will then succeed. And that's kind of the leadership success is dependent on the team, not like what you did. So your job is to make that happen.
Thanks for sharing that, and that kind of perspective where you have to shift and put yourself in the other person's shoes for it to work, and not like, oh my God. Well, it's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Aslak. I'm always, we have time and we're heading towards the end of our conversation, but so many insights you shared around leadership, and it's really a good time to hear about them. A question that I always ask is, if you had Aslak of 10 years old in front of you, he's there, and you have a special conversation with him today now, what would you tell him?
Previously, I would have something that I thought would be smart. I would probably smile and be there and just look what he's doing, and ask him that, do you have any questions that you want answers for? I don't think I could have. Maybe sometimes I say to myself that when people ask, or when I'm thinking, that I could have said that, like, be more brave in that, don't worry about these decisions. But I don't think that would have changed things so much. But I think what would have changed is that, like, why is that person interested in me, and really listening and paying attention, and actually letting me, the 10-year-old, ask and just enjoy the moment. I think that would have had bigger impact, that I would have remembered, than meeting a wise person at that time. More, I think that would have been more valuable in the long term. I don't know if that's true, but could have been. Probably then in the conversation, there could have been some tips that I would have then put in and say that, don't worry, this will be better, or to be brave, if that's what Aslak at 10 years old would have wanted to hear.
Wow. It's interesting. I mean, it seems that 10 years old Aslak would value your presence, just your presence?
Well, I'd say that I believe in leadership as well, that it's again that my role as a CEO is not, of course, is to run the company, but that's from the owners and boards. They have hired me for that, but the team hasn't hired me for that. They have hired me to be there, kind of support them to succeed. And I think the presence is the key in that. So kind of like that everybody feels in the team, and the 10-year-old Aslak feels that there is somebody who really cares and is there to help and support and values the moment that we have now. I think it has bigger impact than anything. Of course, like I listen to great speakers myself, and entitled to get to those positions. I value those moments and they can change my life. But still, if the speaker comes to me and says hi, I think that's even bigger. That's even bigger than anything was there. The kind of the moment of being there and the kind of getting recognized, acknowledged, still has a stronger impact. Then I remember everything else better. So that's why I'm saying that I think it starts from that presence, and after that something happens that will change the life, rather than hearing something, being smart, trying to teach somebody there. That's probably, I don't know if I'm right, but I feel at the moment at least that would make a bigger impact for Aslak's life in the future.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm very sensitive. I can feel like there's a tear, but when you said, even my voice is trying to go away, but when you said the high of the presence, when you said that, I must admit that I went back to 2019. Was it 2019? I think, yeah, during the contest. And I thought, oh, I think that was it. That's why I remember Aslak's leadership, to be honest. Because I thought, if this person, despite all the things he has to do, his busy agenda, his schedule, etc., takes the time, I think I saw you greeting every single person in that room, to be honest. That's what I felt. And I still remember that moment. So thank you for your leadership, Aslak. And I do feel that it seems that nowadays, I mean, even when I work with organizations, there's that the smart part, like the business part, let's get down to it. But that presence does make a whole difference. And I can see it. Sometimes it's not, you can't put words around them, but it does make a difference, especially in this virtual world. So thank you for kind of getting out that essence through your conversation with your 10-year-old. Beautiful.
Well, thanks for that. Again, going back to martial arts, that's quite clear. If you are in a fight, you need to be present. You need to pay attention, and you need to look your opponent in the eye. So I think it comes from there, like that, the concentration on the moment and on the human being, because regardless of what you've trained before, it's you have a person in front of you, and the end outcome is depending on what the person is doing, not what you are doing. And I think that, and I'm intrigued by every human being, and I kind of want to learn from everybody and feel that. So it feels better. I have times when I'm stressed and I don't pay attention to people, and sometimes with the loved ones that I do make mistakes, then my wife and children can comment that, where are you? Why aren't you here with us? But the minute I realize that, so then I can make that moment to be better. And then I can always come back, or the next day be better at that, and kind of learning that it starts from there. I think all of us have had relationships where we think that the words that we get into a fight or something, and we pick the words, but we don't pick the presence. And if it all starts by looking in the eye, being there, everything else becomes better after that. That's the foundation. And then the words start to matter. The smartness of the leader starts to matter. And then the business goes wherever it goes. But I think it starts from that, like, we are here together as human beings in this moment, and just enjoy that part.
Oh, great. Well, time is out. And I always end with a last question, which is more open. and it's to know, Aslak, is there anything you feel is important to bring forward to build these leaders of change who are going to change the world? Anything we've not talked about?
Well, I'd say that anybody can be that person who makes somebody feel special. So if we all start with that, so I think the world's going to be a better place. So if you all take one person that will kind of show the presence today, even if on the remote setting. So I think it starts from there. And yeah, and I think when you start enjoying when others are happy, you become happier yourself. I think the kind of the sharing positive feelings together, emotions makes you smile. I smiled more now than I would have smiled being working here alone. So being with you that are here, so it makes me happy. It makes me feel much better, regardless of what we talk. It still felt much better than I would have ever done alone. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Aslak. Thank you very, very much for your presence there for today with me personally, but also with the people who are going to listen to you, to your insights. This was a very rich conversation, and I am convinced that it will allow people to believe that they could be the leader changing the world. So thank you very much, Aslak.
Thank you, Stella. Appreciate this.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right.